Welcome back to Cindy's Library. This is Cindy, and today I am going to talk about what I read in the second half of the month of February. So let's get to it. First of all, I read Book 2 of The Secrets of Ormdale, Drake Hall by Christina Baehr. And I apologize if I'm not saying that correctly. But we are following the further adventures of Edith. She now knows the secret of her ancestral home, not Wormwood Abbey, that's right. I guess I should say Wormwood Abbey. And, of course, she needs to protect that secret. Of course, there are complications, including the handsome neighbor at Drake Hall, who complicates things in one way, and his mother, who complicates things in another way. So, lots of dragon goodness. Been enjoying this series so far. Looking forward to seeing where it goes next. For Feb Regency, one of the challenges was to read something naval, and another was to read a historical work about the Regency, and C.S. Forster's Feet to Quarters, part of the Hornblower series. Certainly fits both those bills. Starts out, we have Captain Horatio Hornblower. He's just had a 6-month cruise, finally making it to the west side of the American continent, where he has orders to work with a local leader undermining the Spanish. Unfortunately, this local leader is quite mad, and then he gets new orders, and he ends up having to take an English woman on his ship due to plague, and she happens to be the sister of the person who will be the Duke of Wellington, and it goes from there. Parts of this book were a little bit slow, admittedly, which I think is probably quite accurate. When you aren't busy with shore things or with naval battles or with weather, I can quite imagine life at sea is rather boring, but I will say Forster can certainly write naval battles. We have a really good one here in the middle. Well worth reading just for that. Don't know that I'll continue the series, but I'm glad I read this for Feb Regency. I also read 450 from Paddington by Agatha Christie. In this, we have Mrs. McGillicuddy, who swears she saw a man whose back was turned to her strangling a woman on a train that passed the train she was on. No one believes her, except, of course, Miss Marple, who shortly starts to get enough evidence that something is going on. Miss Marple is sadly not as spry as she once was, but that's okay. She recruits a young friend, Lucy, to join the household that's in the area of most suspicion, and things go on from there, of course. And I also read The Mirror Cracked from Side to Side. This actually is, well, right next to St. Mary Mead. It's where the old squire's house is mostly. Well, and in St. Mary Mead itself, and in the neighborhood, the new neighborhood that's been built up. So we have modernity, change, including to Miss Marple, who now has a live-in nurse at the insistence of her nephew, who she does not like. But of more moment, perhaps, we have the old squire's house. It's been bought up by basically an American movie director and his wife, who is one of the biggest movie stars. And of course, once things have been set up there, they have a huge party. Everyone goes, and someone ends up dead there. Of course, this has the effect of uh, perking Miss Marple up as far as interest in life and something to think about, and things like that go on. Murder is always tragic, but this one seems particularly tragic. Still greatly enjoyed it though. And I read C.S. Lewis' Letters to Children. So, C.S. Lewis, after the Chronicles of Narnia was released, he got lots of letters from children, of course, asking him various questions. And C.S. Lewis had so many letters to write. He really came to dislike writing letters. But children wasn't just a duty, it was actually fun for him to write to them. And he would actually write at their level. If you would take into account things like their age, if they mentioned something they were interested in, he might mention that in his reply. If they're from America, he might put in some Americanisms and leave off some British expressions, things like that. Very adorable. Oh, and one of his longest correspondence was his goddaughter. That was even before Narnia was published. So, very fun. This is far from all that Lewis wrote letter-wise. His completed works, which aren't complete, but as many as they had at the time, is 3 huge volumes, and I think the last one is 100 and, or not 100, 1,500 or so letters, or pages, one of the two. But in any case, if you'd like just a little taste of that, this is a good place to go. Then I read The Young Clementina by D.E. Stevenson. Tried the first Miss Bunkle book, and well, it was nice. I didn't fall in love with it. But this one, I did rather fall in love with. So you have 2 sisters. The older is Charlotte, and she's enjoyed her country life, living in where her father is a rector, I believe, the vicarage. Um, the only other person really of her class to play with is the squire's boy. And so they grow up together. They are best friends. It's great. Um, she does have a younger sister. I forget exactly how much younger, but it's fairly significantly younger. It's in 5 years or something like that. And she does her best, but she's never quite as close to her sister. And her sister doesn't receive the same education from her father. She's sent to finishing school, things like that. And she frankly wants to marry money. And the sister, of course, is Clementina. Well, several things happen. Um, and everyone expects that Charlotte and uh, the squire's son, they will get married, and that is totally the plan. Then World War II happens, and more things happen, and he ends up marrying Clementina instead of Charlotte. And so Charlotte makes a new life in London, uh, working in a bookshop, and things go on from there. Let's see, I also read Howard's End by E.M. Forster. I read, what is it called? A Room with a View last year. Was it last year? Yes, it was. And I didn't entirely like it. But Howard's End I adore. You have a meeting of 3 different worlds. You have the world of the Schlegel sisters, who live a bohemian life into art and literature and music and intellectual discussions. And you have on the other side the Wilcoxes. He is a great businessman, great industrialist, and his family is very much like him. And then you have Mr. Bast. He is lower middle class, a precarious position. He wants art and higher things, but he has to worry about, reality. And the lives of all 3 of these parties become entwined. A lot of it centered on Howard's End, which is a place in the country. Mr. Wilcox and the rest of his family think it's very impractical. They think it should be sold. But it's Mrs. Wilcox. She's a bit different from the rest of the family, and she makes a connection with the elder Schlegel sister, Margaret, I believe, and things go on from there. I also read Around the World in 80 Days by Jules Verne. So we start with Phineas Fogg, who is extremely irregular in his habits. You could set your clock by what time he shows up at his club every day, things like that. And at his club, he makes a comment that with the completion of a railroad or at least a portion of a railroad in India, it'd be possible to go around the world in 80 days. Club members don't believe it, so they make a bet, and next thing you know, Phineas Fogg with his servant is off around the world trying to do it in 80 days. And they have a ton of adventures, meet many people. Oh, and one of the most important is an inspector who thinks that Phineas Fogg is the one who stole uh, from the Bank of England about the same time that this bet is made. And so he both complicates and helps things. Uh, Fun read. Glad to revisit it. Now for Feb Regency, I also read The Wild Irish Girl by Sydney Owenson, Lady Morgan. This is the story of Horatio. He is the second son, and he gets into trouble. So his father sends him off to their Irish estate to settle down and learn his lesson, basically. Horatio has always been told negative things about Ireland and the Irish, but he is very much enchanted by the scenery when he arrives, and the more he learns about the people, more he is enchanted by them. Nearby his father's estate is an old castle where an Irish nobleman lives, since it's all he has left, even though it's half in ruins, since the English took the rest, basically. And he also meets said Irish nobleman's daughter, who's like no one Horatio has ever met before, certainly not like those London society belles he is used to. And things go on from there. It's interesting that Lady Morgan, throughout this, don't know how well you can see it, she has tons and tons of footnotes referencing things that contradict the stereotypical view of the Irish, or actual historical documents, or her own experiences. Basically, saying a lot of the stereotypical things about the Irish are not true, which we should not be surprised at. But when this was written, not everyone, well, even realized it, sadly enough. But very enjoyable. Of course, there's a bit of romance in there as well. And this counts for Fab Regency as an author I have never read before, so glad I read it. Yes, then I read C.S. Lewis's Letters to an American Lady. C.S. Lewis ended up corresponding with this American lady for nearly 15 years. And they were all put together, which is interesting. I've read the collections of C.S. Lewis before, but having just one person's correspondence, well, we don't have her side, but having all of C.S. Lewis's correspondence with her all in one place, it's an interesting progression on both sides. We see ups and downs in her life, We see Up and Sundowns and C.S. Lewis's life, like his marriage with Joy and then her death. And uh, they're both always talking about ill health, but very enjoyable. Very enjoyable. I'm sad I did not finish Ivanhoe for Feb Regency, nor did I finish The Betrothed for We Love Jenny. So those will be going on into March. Still very pleased with everything I did read here in February. How did your February reading go? Did you do any of the challenges? Love to hear about it below. Thank you so much for stopping by. Truly do appreciate it. So until next time, I hope we all stay safe and healthy. And as always, happy reading.